What's up, everyone? It's that time of the week again. If you got here, it means that they tried to stop us, but we got to Friday again. So that means it's time for another episode of the Leaf podcast. Now, the main topic of this episode is going to be about jinn. And I don't mean the drink, I mean those hidden ones, those demons from the Islamic world, and really all around the world. Even the ancient Celts have stories of these spirits or hidden ones, but for them they were more nature spirits, but they all behaved the same way. And in pre-Islamic Arabia, there are thousands of stories and encounters with things that we now know as jinn, or, in the Western world, chances are we call them demons. But before we get into that, I have a couple other things that I found were interesting, so I'll be talking about those first. And I think I'll probably have a timestamp when I start talking about the jinn, in case you don't want to hear me yap about the Hadron Collider and all that stuff. And speaking of the Hadron Collider, the reason why I bring it up isn't because of any supernatural reason or anything. It turns out that for a fraction of a second, the Hadron Collider turned lead into gold. Now, that obviously sounds like some kind of medieval alchemy type of story. But apparently, it really happened, but just for a fraction of a second. While they were slamming lead particles together at 99% the speed of light, for a fraction of a second before being destroyed again, they created gold. Now, that doesn't mean that we're anywhere near, turning lead into gold. It was just, a bit of an anomaly that happened. And I think they said with how small or minute the amount that it created, it would take several trillion years to even create enough gold to be in a wedding ring. So we're not going to be seeing lead turned into gold anytime soon. It was just a cool little thing that came up on my feed, and I thought that was pretty cool. And of course, I'm aware of all the conspiracy theories and all the other, I don't know what you call them, just theories, I guess, that the Large Hadron Collider doing its stuff down there is the reason why things are a little wonky on Earth. One of the theories is that we have shifted timelines, and that's the explanation for the Mandela effect. I don't know much more of it than that. I've only ever heard about this stuff in passing, because my stuff's usually focused on cryptids and ghosts. So, if you have any theories or anything about the Large Hadron Collider, feel free to let me know in the comments. Because basically what I know about it is that it's a big thing that throws particles together, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories about it. That's basically my knowledge of it. But yeah, that article was from Live Science, so I will put that in the description if I can remember to. And this next one, the headline goes like this: an ex-NASA official claims to have seen a UFO or flying saucer with a U.S. Air Force logo on it. Now, before getting into the cliff notes of the article, I think that, if true, it really implies that either the U.S. Air Force or the U.S. military has downed alien craft, or the craft never was alien, and it's actually a secret project of the U.S. military. And if you want to go down the diplomatic route, I guess there's a chance that we could have some kind of trade going on with the aliens, maybe we trade them resources and anime and we get flying saucers. Who knows? But the article goes like this: a retired flight surgeon maintains that he saw a secretive saucer-shaped vehicle that belonged to the U.S. Air Force. Dr. Gregory Rogers, a former NASA chief flight surgeon and Air Force major, has talked about something that he saw back in 1992 at Cape Canaveral, Florida. He was conducting a regular inspection when an Air Force major approached him and invited him to come and see something that would, quote, knock his socks off. And Rogers was then taken to a room where he was shown a CCTV feed of a saucer-shaped vehicle that indeed had a U.S. Air Force logo clearly emblazoned on it. He said, I would estimate it was about 20 feet wide, probably 8 to 10 feet tall, and had a shallow dome on top of it. There were no antennas. There were no flight control surfaces. Everything was very smooth and blended. I saw no rivets, no seams, nothing. Everything was white, but there was a vertical black rectangle at 3 o'clock, the 6 o'clock, and the 9 o'clock position on the upper half of the vehicle. Without warning, the object began to move, and all of a sudden, it just lifted up, just as smooth as it could be. And then he goes on to say, once it got up maybe 3 feet above the concrete surface, it rotated completely around, clockwise, 1 revolution, and then it revolved counterclockwise, 1 revolution. Amazed by what he had witnessed, he turned to the Air Force Major for an explanation. The Major simply said, "We got it from them," pointing up at the sky. So what do you think happened here? Do you think that it was indeed a real thing? Or do you think that they were literally just pulling a prank on him? And I asked that because I know how pranks can go in the military. I have family who were in the military for 20, 30 years, and they talked about some of the pranks and how elaborate they got just to screw with somebody, and it's wild. But do you think that was the case here? Or do you think that we really did get a flying saucer from whoever? Do you think that it was directly from them? Or do you think that they showed us how to build it? Because a lot of people believe that the reason why aliens even come here isn't because of humans. It's because of resources. And the Earth is very resource rich. And whatever planet they come from probably has a lot less resources now, especially if they've been able to master faster than light travel. I could go on and on about it, but let me know what you think. Do you think that this is something that really happened? Because he's very adamant that this did happen. Do you think that it was a real flying saucer? Do you think that it's one that they showed us how to build? Do you think that it was a prank? Let me know down in the comments. And now that brings me to the main topic of this video, which is going to be encounters with the jinn. Now I could be mistaken, but if I remember right, the Quran says that the jinn were made using smokeless fire, which if I had to interpret that from a modern context, that would imply that it's just pure energy, or some kind of plasma, I guess. But in Mexico, you see how some witches travel like balls of fire that don't really give off any smoke, so it really could be just smokeless fire. So here we go. This first encounter is from 1980. This is during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and it's the guy's father who's telling this story, or he's telling it from the point of view of his father. So this happened to my dad. It was the 1980 Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. He was being sent with a small patrol to investigate a scout about attacks on Soviet soldiers in this small abandoned village. I can't remember what the name of it was. It was Marid or Marad or something close to that. The locals warned them not to go and that this village was abandoned for a reason. The Soviet command, though, believed that this is where enemy soldiers were hiding. So the patrol heads there. They head out at midday, and they arrived around twilight. He told me that when they entered the town, everything went dead silent. No insects or anything. Everyone immediately felt very uneasy. Anybody who's religious begins to say prayers. After they begin to settle down, they stop to rest and relax a little bit. And that's when they hear something. My dad described it as the jangle of jewelry or chains, and also the sound of somebody running barefoot. The sound came from rocks near the village. Everyone goes on full alert mode. They start hearing the sound every few seconds, but they can see nothing. Even the officer who came with them is beginning to lose it. And that's when it finally showed itself. Everyone saw it. There was a crouched figure on top of a tall religious building. He says that its skin resembled something like an elephant hide. It had long-ass nails and a large necklace. The necklace looked like something that a pharaoh would wear, apparently. It was very skinny. Its face was the worst part. Instead of mouth or eyes, it just has super deep, sunken holes. My dad said the light around it seemed to distort. It was just like a cloud of pure blackness, and there was smoke coming from the holes that were its eyes. Everyone basically shits themselves seeing this. Its hand darts up and points directly at the patrol officer. He says the noise it made sounded like a low horn mixed with gurgling. The guy opens fire. The thing vanishes. And by vanishes, he doesn't mean there was a poof of smoke or anything. It was just there 1 second and gone the next. And then this absolutely chilling, blood-curdling scream erupts over the valley that this village is located in. It echoes for what sounds like miles. Everyone hauls ass back to camp as they hear the screech. The Soviet command doesn't go back there, and they don't investigate whatever it was they were after in that village again. So, what did you think of that one? Not gonna lie, if I saw that thing too, I'd probably come close to shitting my pants as well. Besides its appearance, one thing that I found very interesting was how the air around it seemed to distort. It almost kinda gives it an ethereal vibe, if you get what I'm saying. It's like it can manifest here, but only for a short period of time. And it's well known that the jinn seem to live on a different plane, and they can interact with humans for a short period of time. They can possess humans and do all kinds of crazy stuff to them. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because that seems to be a thing for a lot of high strangeness as well. Like in the other podcast episode where I talked about this werewolf that was in Cannock Chase, how it just appeared and disappeared, how the air around it seemed to be manipulated, how things went quiet before it happened. This is why I think that there could be some kind of connection, that it could be some type of entity that just appears differently, probably based on belief and culture, I would assume, but I don't know for sure. And I even heard one story saying that jinn actually have their own lives, their own families, their own everything, but it's just on a different plane from ours. And honestly, all I could think of when I first read that was like, oh, I have to go for a shift at the jinn factory, just something funny like that. But no, it's extremely interesting how all of these entities all over the world seem to have very similar properties. And it seems that generally anyone who comes close to finding out what exactly they are for real, that's all of these things, or getting close to like unifying it, or unifying a definition of what kind of causes all this high strangeness. They always kind of go a little Looney Tunes before the end, don't they? And I suppose that goes back to the thing with high strangeness, that when you look too much into it, it begins to look into you. And also, it was quite interesting how it said that it wore something akin to an Egyptian chain. Now, what that kind of makes me think of is just how old and how ancient it must be. And if it's that old and ancient, I wonder if it's that much more powerful. I read somewhere that jinn feed on energy or fear, which is kind of what demons do, and kind of what a lot of other of these weird entities do. But yeah, I'll get into the next one here. Let me know what you thought of that one down in the comments. And this next one, I may have done something similar to this in a different video like 3 or 4 years ago now, but I really don't remember. But it really fits this topic quite well, so I figured I would include it. I'm from Bangladesh, and although the major cities have developed infrastructure, some of the more isolated villages are pretty much still in the dark ages. There's no electricity, no power for lights or any of that stuff. They are surrounded by dense, thick forests, and the villagers have stories of witches and jinn that live in the trees and sometimes come into the villagers' huts and possess them. When I still lived in Bangladesh, my mom worked as a representative for poor villages. Her job was to basically go to villages around the country, provide them with aid and food, and establish a rapport with the people in charge. She would sometimes take me and my sister along with her. This happened when I was about 10 years old, and is something that has stayed with me to this day. We went to a particularly isolated village, the closest town with electricity and any sort of law enforcement was at least 2 hours away by car. Right from the time we got there, something was off. Apparently, one of the villagers' sons was acting very strangely. They had him locked up in a barn, and people were gathering like it was some kind of circus show. My mom forbade me to go there, but while she was busy working, I snuck over. What I saw chilled me to the bone. The kid was about my age, foaming at the mouth, covered in oozing sores. A man threw a live chicken into the barn, and the kid grabbed it by its neck and bit its head clean off. One of the men told me that the kid was possessed by a churail, a spirit with the face of a woman that can only be recognized by its backwards placed feet. They are twisted 180 degrees and face the back of its body. Being a city boy, I just laughed it off. Later that day, I met a boy and a girl from the village, and we began kicking around a soccer ball that I had brought. Then, I went home. That night, when everyone was asleep, I woke up suddenly. I looked out the window to the barn where the boy was kept, only a few yards away. I saw the door slowly open, and something came out. It was a huge, towering figure, at least 10 feet tall, its face covered by black, scraggly hair. It was wearing a stained white robe and walking with a strange limp in the full light of the moon. As it got closer, I could see its feet. They were backwards. My heart started pounding. I wanted to run to my mom in the next room, but my body was frozen in fright. I watched as the thing got closer and closer until it was only a few feet away from my window. I looked at its face, and my blood went cold. It was the face of the little girl that I had been playing soccer with earlier that day. At that point, I don't know what happened. All I remember is blacking out and waking up the next day. There was a huge uproar. The village's possessed boy was found dead in the barn. I couldn't find the little girl anywhere. I asked around, but nobody could remember knowing a girl with the description that I gave them. I tracked down the other boy that I had been playing soccer with, and he didn't know either. He said that he only remembered just playing soccer with me, and that there was nobody else with us. So what do you think was going on here? It seems that this other thing, a churail or churail, may be a different kind of jinn or just a different name for it, because it kind of had the same type of robes and the same type of really creepy appearance that a lot of the jinn seem to have. It's possible that they are different entities entirely, but they sounded a little close and it was still interesting, so I figured I would include it in this video. And I think what's also really creepy about this is that if this thing was possessing the boy, and then the person telling the story also saw it, it means that it was able to be in two places at once, or possess two people at once. And maybe it was only able to do that because it was draining energy from the boy, or maybe from the girl as well. It's really hard to say, and very tragic that these things happen. I would also not want to ever see a jinn or any of these other things either. I've seen ghosts and demons, and those are scary enough. So, I think I'll ask you what you thought of this story. I found it pretty intense, pretty scary, and pretty crazy to me. But let me know what you think. And if you liked this episode of the podcast, be sure to like and subscribe. And if you would like to donate to the channel, there's a PayPal and a Patreon in the description below. And there's also super thanks and memberships here on YouTube. And before I go, I'll put up a couple more videos in case you would like to check out a video that you haven't seen. Or maybe you want to check one out again. And with that, I hope to see you Sunday. Thank you for pulling up a stump with me. Thank you for watching. And let's try to have a good weekend.